Hello, good morning and welcome back to On the Hook. My name is John Locker from the Fish Locker, and today I'm fishing with Robin Chapman from Bite Adventures out of Penzance. We're going to be fishing for blue sharks. Throughout the day we're going to talk you through the rigs, the rods, the tactics, how to target blue sharks. Fishing from a charter boat today. It's a fantastic introduction to shark fishing. If you're thinking about getting into it and you've got your own small boat, I would definitely recommend fishing with a more experienced shark fisherman. Just for your first couple of times, it'll help cut down your learning curve and teaches you the proper handling techniques and the safest way to do things. All you need is a big bright float, because you're going to be fishing at distance, and like I say, there's what we've got today, we'll have at least 5 foot of movement in swell.
Easily, yeah.
So you need to just be able to see them. These are free sliding floats to a predetermined depth. You'll tie a stop knot onto your leader. And we've got, this will probably be about 10 foot of trace, and then what have you got, 3 foot of, best part of 10 foot of trace body with I want to say a 6 ounce lead.
8s they are, mate, for the deep ones, yeah. Right, I change the depths, the further they go back, the heavier the lead.
And you've got probably 3 foot of hook length there in between. Now, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to explain why I do it, but I'm going to ask you if you've got any different reasons. Reason why I have 2 different parts, a trace body and a hook length, is because this is what sees the most wear. These are interchangeable.
Definitely.
And also sometimes you get an awkward hooked fish where you want to, well, you instead of T-barring it out, you have to pull the trace through.
Yeah.
But everything is always done with a barbless circle.
It's so much easier just to be able to unhook them,
because
you can unhook them so quick. And then, obviously, that then's free.
Yeah.
And then you've got just the hook in your hand.
In the same way that if you damage up 6 inches at the end of this trace, rather than having to throw away an entire trace or recrimp, just change out a hook length. Now, is this 480 pound wire, or is it?
It's 280. 280 I use.
And your swivels, these are going to be? What?
They're massive.
Yeah, they are big. The hook baits, I mean, that came to a whiting. But you can use pretty much anything, can't you? I've had them on mackerel, pouting, whiting.
The blue sharks are scavengers, so they're pretty much, they'll come because we got the slick in the water, and then they'll pick up on anything that's floating in the water. I mean that looks pretty nice.
We've got some power gum because we haven't got a stop knot yet on this one. On the side of the boat, you've got your chum bags out, and that's just bags of bran, chopped up fish oil. Creates a scent. If you can see, there's a shiny area, that's fish oil, that's come from the chum. The sharks swimming around in the sea around here, as soon as they come into that chum trail, they'll follow it to where the scent comes from. As they're following it, they'll find our bait. Now, as the chum comes out of the bags, it will start to sink. So the further away you go from the boat, the deeper the chum will have got to. So generally, your further floats away are your deeper floats. And you just set them to whatever depths you think that the sharks are going to be at. You set them at 30 foot, 60 foot, 80 foot. I mean, obviously, if you're only fishing in 80 foot of water, you can't set them any deeper than that. But also, it depends on the tide. On slacker tides, you can set them deeper, can't you? Because on the stronger tides, you need more lead. Otherwise, with the drift, you might think you've set it at 60 foot. With the drag of the tide, the bait might only be at 40 foot. I'm assuming that this is an 80-pound mono rubbing leader, or is it heavier?
That's the Trilene 100. Trilene 100 pound.
And you've just FG knotted it onto your mainline braid?
Yes, mate, yeah.
What have you got in here? Is this 60 pound mainline braid? It feels quite thin.
It's the Fireline.
Like this rod set up here in this holder, all it's got is it's just got minimal drag on it, but also with the ratchet. So that you'll hear, there's 2 different types of bites that you're going to see. You're either going to see a positive bite, where the float just buries straight under the water, or you'll see a negative bite, like a drop back bite. been that if a shark picks up the bait and the weight and comes up in the water, the float, instead of sitting up cocked, will generally lay up flat. Or if it starts to move to a side, or you can sometimes get them where they just take hold of the bait, but they come towards the boat. So if you notice that your floats are getting closer together, that could be an indication that a shark's picked one of them up and it's moving up the slip.
Better fish on it, a little bit better.
A little bit better. When it can only go as far as the seabed, it can't go any further.
No. Does this every time, then he makes me wind the bloody weight up and nothing on
It
it.
literally just got to the seabed, hasn't it? Yeah, I don't think it was that fish that we saw.
No, no, it's gone too deep, hasn't it?
Well, not only that, there's a bit more weight to it, yeah.
Can I get away with this going up the front or back? Which way is that line going, bud?
Slightly forward, midships. Now we're on it. All I'm doing here is I'm making sure that I don't let the line touch the side of the boat. Where are you going? What are you doing? Sometimes you can tell by the fight whether or not they're ready for another run, because you'll see that they'll kind of come in slow and then they'll do a couple of quick movements, so you'll feel a couple of little jabs and then they'll scream off.
Generally, you get that second of weightlessness in the rod, then you think, oh, and then off it goes.
Because it's much better to play them out properly so that you're dealing with a more subdued fish when you get it to the side of the boat. There's no point, this also goes back to using the right gear
I'll
for
leave
it.
this back here, mate.
Because if you're using gear that's far too heavy, you bring the fish to the boat before it's ready. So there's more thrashing, there's more chance of the shark damaging itself against the side of the boat or damaging you, and it's just better all round if you properly play them out.
Do you have that effect on women, Ben?
Took one look at Ben and was like, "Ah."
Really well. Multiplier setups and fixed bull setups. The rods are slightly different. Easiest way to spot the difference is by the size of the eyes. You will get some rods where they are multiplier and they are fixed bull both. Yeah.
But when you're getting into your specialised tackle, generally, I mean, these 7,500s or are these 8s?
No, that's the 5,500. That's the 5,500, and that's the 6,500.
I tell you what, it's a good size reel.
It
for
is nice
5.5,
size,
isn't
lovely
it?
size reel for it, mate. And again, in the UK, you're going to be. Everyone wants that dream fish, but to me, a dream fish is that fish over the £100 mark. The majority of fish, 60, 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds.
There's
that
no point
sort of
going.
outfit. You want to be able to enjoy your fight instead of having heavy duty stuff where you just can't do nothing with them. You just literally wind the handle. There's my fish. And
Well,
there's no fun.
You're looking at what you're most likely to catch,
Yeah.
and you're aiming your tackle at that to have maximum sport.
Fish for what your waters,
Yeah.
what you predominantly got in your own waters.
These will handle that
Oh, no
one bigger
problem.
fish, but it'll
No problem.
take a little bit
It's
more.
whether the angler can handle the fish.
I mean, these are, what are these, 200 grams are they? 20 to 130, and that one will be a little bit heavier because it looks stiffer. I was going to ask how long they were. You can just see there, it's best part of 7 foot. You can't fish too long a rod when you're fishing on a boat like that, can you? Especially that.
It gets harder. It does get harder, but the issue you have with a longer rod, when a fish goes deep, you haven't kind of got the lifting power where you would with a shorter rod.
You just bend straight over it, and you've only got a smaller angle to gain line.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've got the problem myself in that when I fish from my small boat, because I'm doing it all solo, if you've got a long rod, to be able to get hold of the trace, my arms aren't long enough, and I end up. Yeah.
Lean run. Go on, lean run. Oh.
I'm worried more about where he's going towards these lines.
Right, now I can do that. Come on, let's get that one there.
He's round it.
Right, that one's up there now for a minute.
Yeah.
Which one's he gone round the front one? We've got a right mess here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did someone wind that inside rod in there? That feather rod in, lads. Is there a second fish there with that?
Yeah.
Do you feel even more still if I do this? John, can you fish for these whitings on the surface?
Concerned about that shark trying to go right front of the boat. I want him to go down. Get round. Johnny, baby, you know.
Be a small one. Which way's he gone, pal?
He's going down, but he's underneath the front of the boat. Oh, that's a bonny looking fish. It's only small like, but he's a good one.
I was surprised the way he went off. I thought it was going to be a better one.
Yeah. Right, I want to cut across here. The tide today, we've got wind against tide. We've only got a couple of hours left.
Till about 1 o'clock, and then the winds. At the moment, you've got the winds coming from the west. The tide is going to the west, so it kind of holds you, and it will squeeze you either to the north or to the south a little bit. But generally, you don't drift as fast. When you get the wind and the tide come together, then that's when you cover a substantial amount of ground. Then.
Do you prefer fishing for sharks on larger tides, on spring tides, or on neap tides?
I got to be honest, I don't think it makes as much difference nowadays as it used to. I think back in the day it used to be, I've got to have big tides for them. You've got to be covering miles and miles of ground.
As I was learning, that's what it was always said. It was about covering the ground.
Yeah. I think the main thing nowadays is to make sure where our slick is, you don't want any breaks in your slick. You want constant slick going in.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got the 3 bags over the side, and I've got a hand chum as well that I throw in just to keep it going as much as possible. I tend to find you catch more poor beagles on the smaller tides as opposed to the big tides.
Is that because they're not as active?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, I believe so. But I think nowadays as well, because everyone's got so much more information about sharks nowadays, with the science that's being put into the sharks. You learn as you go, but the key thing is nice fresh bait and a constant heavy slick. Keep that slick going in all the time. It's
one of the things that I always try and recommend to people when they ask me about getting an introduction to shark fishing, is I just say, well, find an experienced charter skipper.
Yeah.
Because you're doing this every single day. I mean, most charter skippers, by the time I've finished them at the end of the day, their heads are hurting because I've been blagging them. They're a mine of information, and I want to take everything that I can to learn from you.
Yeah, 100%.
It's things that you do every single day, little bits of differences like bait presentations or trace lengths, or like that what you were saying about the tides.
Yeah, yeah.
I've had it sometimes when I've been out on my boat, you don't get as much movement in the water as this. A really sort of like slack, greasy day.
Yeah.
And they're really difficult, but I've found like feeding them little tiny chunks.
Yeah.
Almost to build their confidence to taking a bait.
It's a confidence thing, of course it is. And the chunks works, but I've got it in like a soup, so I break all the mackerel down and then just spoon a bit in all the time, so they get the confidence, so they can pick up the bait, they can feed on it, and it just takes the edge off them. Ideally, you just want a lot of sharks in the slick, so they're all fighting over one bait, and life's easy.
It is. I've noticed that before. Sometimes you'll get a shark on one of those slow days, and it'll just amble around. You'll see it coming right at the back of the slick, and it just, as if it's got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And it just cuts about all the way up to the bag, gives the boat a nosy, goes round, and just hangs around. And then as soon as another shark turns up, and you've got two of them there competing, it'll be on a bait.
You can see the mannerism of the shark.
Because it's kind of like, oh, actually, he's going to have that, I'm going to have it.
Yeah.
So just by having more sharks in the slick, I mean, obviously it's common sense that if you've got more sharks, you're going to catch more fish. But no, if you've got more sharks, they're more likely to take a bait because they're competing with each other. Yeah. The water clarity that we've got here today, it's not too bad. I mean, I was watching them whiting coming up at best part of 15, 20 feet.
Yeah, it's clear. We haven't had that all season. We have had a bit of a season this year where there's been a lot of like dead algae in the water, which becomes dirty. Yeah. And some days you're only seeing sharks 6-7 foot if you're lucky. Yeah,
the last trip I did out of Falmouth, I had the wire in my hand and I couldn't see its back, and it wasn't until it turned over and it was bright green, and I was thinking, well, that's the algae. So as I explained earlier about setting the different depths, the furthest float away was the deeper one. Throughout the day, what I would do personally is I would fish them at different depths, and if all the fish were coming on a certain depth, I would think about moving the other rods to being closer to that depth. So if I had a deeper rod out and it hadn't had anything all day, and every fish would come on the 10 foot, 15 foot rod, I'd think about making a couple of other...
The issue you've got, whereas you're on your smaller boat down in Falmouth, you've probably got maybe 2 rods out, which is easy when you're on a charter boat.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I got 4 or 5 rods out. So the last thing you want to do is settle your floats out
at the same height,
fishing all at the same depth, and you can guarantee that furthest one will go every time, so you've got to bring everything in.
Yeah.
So the idea of one is staggering it down through the water, because your chum, as it goes away from the boat, is going to go down through the water columns. So the deepest rod, if you fish it deepest, there's no good fishing the nearest rod at 80 foot because it's not really doing anything. No. So it's keeping them in the slick. But we go deeper purely just to dry. That could be a shark, see the spook, just to really stagger the depths so that you haven't got, hopefully, the deepest rod going and then the inside rod sat on the boat all day. So the more we can maximise the baits in the water, the better, really.
You will see us throughout the day, even though we're talking. It's like having your head on a swivel, because we might see a couple of sharks coming on the slick and they'll come up. You won't see them any deeper than about 5 foot.
No.
There could be 5 times as many sharks as you'll ever see. You might get some days where you're getting loads of sharks and you never see one. One of the best bite indicators, like we were talking about earlier, is them seagulls.
Yeah, every time.
I don't know how they know. They must have some kind of sixth sense. I imagine that if our lives depended on it, I would learn how to spot.
You don't want something coming from behind you with sharp teeth.
No. They'll take off, or you'll see them. They'll be pecking at little pieces of the slick, and then immediately they'll turn round and they'll be skittish on the water and they'll lift off and they'll hang around. They won't land in the slick, and then lo and behold, 2 minutes later you've got a shark. They can spot. That fulmer taking off there, I don't know if you saw, but that was a good indication, because it wasn't I'm going to take off and I'm going to go somewhere else. It was I'm off.
Yeah.
These guys are just perfection in miniature, but you can see, look at the width of the wrist of his tail. These guys are all about power. If the blue sharks are a greyhound, these are a pit bull. If you want to just slide that door open there, I'll just drop him back through. There's the shark there.
There's a shark cutting across the surface, look, Jim.
See the bait about 20 feet behind the float. Our fish is going to come up underneath us here now, mate.
Yeah, no worries, pal. Can you hold that in one of your hands in a minute? If I come this side, you got that? I'll grab the wire. Yes, mate. Just keep your rod out wide for me, John.
Left or right?
You stay this side, mate. Just keep your rod out wide. Little small one. There he is. Morning. Beautiful. The only reason I say that as well is because if I got the wire in my hand, then I leave go of it. All of a sudden, the shark takes off. You need to make sure that the boat and the rod don't come meeting each other. You got the T-bar, John? Yes, mate. Easy as that, look.
This would be a nicer fish to get a tag in. If you can pop that door, I can get a tag in this one.
Yeah?
If you want to pass that rod and we'll stick it here, then I can stand this one up in there while I'm tagging it.
I'll put him in the back.
Just seen me tag that last shark. The last shark that we had to the boat was a suitable size to be able to tag. It was about 50 pounds. And the things that I've recorded on here is the species, the rough location, the estimated weight, its sex, and any noticeable features. So if it's got any mating scars or if it's got any damage to its fins. That one had quite a few lice on it. So I've noticed here there was a few lice present, but the fish was in a healthy state. Perfectly hooked at the side of the mouth, released, straight away. Perfect. Now, if anybody recatches that shark, what they'll do is record the number. Record all those things that I've just said. That way you can track migration routes, growth rates, anything like that. Also, if I've had one before where I'd caught it and it had a bite mark out of one of its fins. If, for instance, if it's caught again and that's healed over, it shows how well that they can survive different types of wounds. We finished fishing the rest of the tide. As you can see, the sun's starting to hide. I think we ended up with 10 blue sharks and a little poor beagle.
A little beagle, yeah.
The fishing just never really took off. It was just chipping away at fish throughout the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those days we picked away. That's the main thing.
Well, the conditions when we first go out, I think the swells at some point in time were good 8 foot.
Yeah.
You know that when you lose the horizon, that it's a big swell. And I found it really interesting. I mean, you're always learning. Every day is a school day.
Yeah, definitely.
And you were teaching me things today where I didn't even consider. So, yeah, it was things I didn't even know I didn't know. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I hope this has given you some type of an insight of what it's like to go blue shark fishing. I would definitely recommend it if you're going to be attempting this for the first time, possibly your own small boat, to find yourself an experienced shark skipper. Go them for a couple of times because it'll definitely teach you the best ways and the safest ways to do it. I hope you've enjoyed joining us. I hope you found it interesting. All the very best. See you later.